And before somebody types in, if you don't like America, just leave. No, 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 no. You don't understand. I love America. It's why I want it to be better, not abandon it. There's something I want to talk about. We're going to get fan art out of the way, but fairly short topic, still an important one. Let's go ahead and get in fan art. This one is from Daddy Tronos 666. Honestly, this is probably one of my favorites, just in the image composition. While it may be a little busy, this also gives me some, I don't know the exact vibes this gives me, but it's very chaotic vibes. And I really like this. Another one that is from Daddy Tronos, a little less busy. They said this one, I've got 2 art in my name. Of these, if these 2 don't get featured, that's okay. I'll post them on Twitter because why not? I mean, they're both getting featured. I actually really like this outfit. The last one we have is from Shibe Once Cherry Conk. Said, I returned with a Putu Suris on a slime Suris. Enjoy. Yeah, it was almost apocalyptic. That first image, it looked like a final attack in an anime had happened, and I was coming up from it. Thank you very much, Decoradol, for the... You fucking monster. Oh, yeah, I should also note the actual text under here is, you spent enough at war with yourself. I don't know if this is a double entendre for the Owo Wars, or if it's actually, pointing out that a lot of people tend to be fighting their own, better judgment. I don't know. Either way, I like it. As always, though, if you want your fan art to be shown in a future episode, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section. That is over at the Discord. With that said, I want to talk about something. Honestly, this is not a super in-depth conversation, but it is an important one, I think. So, there's an idea that got ingrained into my head for the longest time when I was growing up, and that's the idea that America is special. That there's something magic about America that makes us a special nation. That we have this super niche idea of what freedom is, and it is somehow more important than other conceptualizations of freedom. This American exceptionalism. We can do whatever we want militarily because American exceptionalism. We are free specifically because American exceptionalism. Nowhere else is free like us, and we need to liberate other nations and give them the freedoms we have. As Lauren Boebert says that about Canada, literally talking about invading Canada. The reason this has come up is because of, unfortunately, the gun control debate. I believe that a combination of restrictions need to be put in place. Not removal of people's guns completely, but a combination of restrictions in place so that people can responsibly utilize weapons as tools. But something about America has made it to where people believe that weapons are measuring devices. Your AR-15, and I recognize that there's multiple models of that, and the conversation about gun control doesn't end and begin with the AR-15, and that most actual gun violence in America is done with handguns, not rifles. I understand all that, but it doesn't change the fact that an AR-15 is utilized a lot in common conversation, especially here in the South, as a dick measuring device. As a thing for you to use, and not as a tool, not as a device for hunting, but as something to show your status. And when I bring up that there are other countries that are equally economically developed, even sometimes more so than America, that have common sense gun control laws, this idea that magically won't work in America is always brought up. And I understand that there's arguments like, if you took a gun every minute, you would be doing it for 500 years. Congratulations, but we can take it at a much faster rate than that, Einstein. I'm glad you're that bad at math. I get it, but I think it all boils down to American exceptionalism. I think all of it boils down to, that worked in other countries, but it won't work here because America's special. And it's not just the gun conversation. We've had this conversation about healthcare, too. There's this idea, somehow, strangely, that we can't have single-payer or universal or some type of healthcare system that is better than begging and pleading an insurance company to please, oh please, pay the cost of your insulin. That there's a better way than that other countries have already found out because there are more comprehensive healthcare systems that are not employer dependent in multiple other financially developed countries, economically developed countries. The idea that somehow that won't work here, it's always predicated that there is something special about this patch of dirt in the ocean that makes it to where we can't do that. And it's never made any sense to me ever since I started thinking about the problem. Like, if it works in other countries, why doesn't it work here? If healthcare works in other countries, why doesn't it work here? If, common sense weapon control works in other countries, why doesn't it work here? Why can't it work here? A lot of our attitudes towards drugs are different in other countries, and yet somehow here it's very different. I think a lot of this comes down to latent Christianity, maybe. The idea that God chose us, therefore something special about us. But guess what? Multiple other countries think God chose them, and it doesn't change shit. That means nothing. It's a nothing statement. This idea that there's something magical about the founding of the United States. It's this baby nation that has existed only for a couple hundred years. More than a couple, but you understand my point. It astounds me, and I think it's toxic. It's not helpful to any conversation, but it's a brainwashed idea that somehow other functioning democracies are less free in any measurable sense than the United States because we had a magical founding that we mythologize. And it makes us somehow fundamentally different than other locations that have similar origin stories, whether true or false. I think a lot of it's the product of our education system. We're a country that worships our own flag, for God's sakes. When you are growing up in school, you get desensitized to the idea of pledging your allegiance to a piece of cloth. But what does that mean? What does it do? What are you even proud of? We find ourselves worshiping that thing from day one without any actual context for why. And then we see videos constantly on the internet of people getting hurt because they don't want to worship a fucking flag. You want to talk about uniquely American problems? That's a uniquely American problem. We've beaten this blind patriotism into people, and it doesn't help anyone. To the point where even our own media memes it. The whole America fuck yeah song. That's not a celebration, my guy. That's a wake-up call. American exceptionalism is problematic. It feels like there's a cult around America, and it creates an environment, in my mind, where people are primed for cult-like behavior. It's very easy for people in America to fall for MLMs. It's very easy for them to fall into actual cults like Mormonism, Scientology, the Jehovah's Witnesses. Those things are considered normal here. Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses as organizations are considered normal. That's not a good thing. But what happens with that kind of environment when you're primed to blindly believe in something like that? Well, it's easy to get people into a religion, that's for sure. But it's also easy to get people into a cult of personality. Do I even need to bring up Donald Trump? Do I? Is that a thing that I need to do here? Like, yeah, other countries have Mormons, other countries have Jehovah's Witnesses, but like how there are other countries with weaponry, like how there are other countries with drugs, like how there are other countries with other things, I feel like there is something awkward about America that makes us more predisposed to those things. And I think it comes down to our education system. We teach kids to worship America in some way, shape, or form. And it makes it really easy to end up worshiping a cult of personality off of that. We hear stories about the mythologizing of the leader of North Korea as some type of nigh omnipotent deity, but realistically, is that very far off from American exceptionalism paired with Christian fundamentalism? All the mechanics are there. It's all the same shit. It's all the same stuff. It's all there. You don't have to change that many gears to take Christian fundamentalism and American exceptionalism and turn it into something like what you have in North Korea. It's not hard. So what do we do about that? Well, I think the first step is to denormalize pledging to the flag. Pledging to the flag is and always has been stupid. If our country is so great, surely we should be able to garner pride in it without having to be indoctrinated into that. Don't you think? If we truly are the greatest nation in the world, maybe we shouldn't have such a mythologized past to pretend that we are. Maybe we should just lay the reality bare. Oh, but we're the country that did shit to itself like MK Ultra. Yeah, like that was a neat thing for us to do. Or our own politicians have to apologize publicly for taking its own citizens and drugging them up. Yeah, no, that was a great thing. While our veterans find themselves dying because of exposure to Agent Orange, traumatized by the things we've put them through when we send them out to a field of wars that we have no business being in. Oh, but don't worry, we're the greatest nation in the world. Richest nation in the world, we can't afford healthcare for our own people. Nation with some of the smartest people in the world, and yet somehow we can't solve gun violence. Something special about America. We're especially obstinate and stupid. And it should be very easy to solve that problem, yet awkwardly, there's a lot of aspects to our gun culture, our culture around drugs, our Puritan culture, the religiosity of America. A lot of these things need to be changed from the ground up. I don't know necessarily how to go about all of that. I don't have fingers in that many pies. I'm a single dude on the internet talking about shit on YouTube. Maybe it says America is that country to most other nations. Yeah, and we shouldn't be. We shouldn't be a joke to a bunch of other nations. We shouldn't. Because we're the biggest man on the block when it comes to our own mythology. And yet somehow we're a laughingstock to a bunch of other nations because we can't solve basic issues. Our citizens have to pay thousands of dollars into healthcare just to stay alive. Oh, and by the way, there's more to it than that. Can we talk about the fact that our own sugar industry is actively killing American citizens? Can we talk about that for a second? We've shoved high fructose corn syrup in so many things because it easily makes things taste better. And, oh, by the way, there's also research that shows that it inhibits the appetite suppressing nature of your body. The thing that tells you you're full. The thing that tells you you're satisfied. Fructose can turn that off. You can help that with fiber, which is why fruit, while containing a lot of fructose, is also generally fine. The skin of apples and stuff like that, they're filled with fiber. Your body's fine. But we remove fiber out of a lot of our meals too. How many meals in America are, meat and potato meals where the potato's skinned off? We demonized fat for a long time because the SRF actually put a bunch of bogus documentation out that fat was causing a bunch of heart disease and trying to argue that sugar wasn't causing any of it. And then we get to create this cycle in America that's, again, Filthy Slim, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. We get to create the cycle in America where people need more health care because their bodies are being destroyed and they can't avoid sugars, which the copious amounts we consume in America are destroying our bodies and causing us to become more dependent on insulin. And then we have to have legislation come in that actually limits the price of insulin because we need so goddamn much of it. And I'm not trying to sound like a conspiracy theorist when I point out that, but if you want to talk about a uniquely American problem, overconsumption of sugar is a uniquely American problem. We're not quite an oligarchy, but we've certainly allowed lobbyists and money that's been injected into politics to get us really fucking close. We create a cyclical industry. We have a cyclical nature with our gun industry, thoughts and prayers instead of solutions. We have a cyclical nature where the sugar industry is concerned. Everything needs more sugar, keeps us from being as hungry, or keeps us more hungry. Therefore, we consume more items. Therefore, we end up becoming insulin dependent. Therefore, we end up supporting a medical industry that, oh, by the way, we, as a developed country, uniquely cannot pay for our own citizens, so they have to pay for that out of pocket, and now they have to pay for insulin. Oh, and by the way, when you inject a lot of insulin, you end up gaining more weight because the insulin's job is to actually allow your body to metabolize and store those sugars, which now leads to more people who are overweight because now their body can actually take the sugar and turn it into fat. And now that they're doing that, now you've got an entire sub-industry of weight loss shit and a completely unregulated supplement market. And somehow this is all just okay in the perfect US of A. This is all considered normal here. We're all desensitized to it. If you hear the astounding number of people who have type 2 diabetes in America, that's normal. You hear the astounding number of gun violence in America, that's normal. When you hear the back-asswards way we view recreational drugs in America, but if you live here, that's all normal. Nobody can afford healthcare, but here in America, that's normal. People going years and years without seeing the dentist, without seeing a primary care physician, in America, that's normal. But we're somehow the exceptional nation. We're somehow the magical one. We're somehow the best one in the entire world, yet we can't take care of our own goddamn citizens. And it creates another cyclical issue. Foreign policy dictates that we need to be able to help our allies when it comes to issues of war and strife. So when we do things to help our political allies, our foreign nations that we depend on, by the way, for trade in a lot of cases, conservative politicians in the States get to argue, how can we send 40 million to Ukraine, but we can't even pay for our own veterans? Well, the reason we can't pay for our own veterans is because we as a country have been cutting all of their funds via policy, not because we're sending money to other nations in foreign aid. I wish it was a zero-sum game. That'd be very simple, but it's just not. American exceptionalism is poison. That's my take. American exceptionalism is poison. And I think we need to figure out an antidote to it. And before somebody types in, if you don't like America, just leave. No, you don't understand. I love America. It's why I want it to be better, not abandon it. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. But that rant's been a long time coming. Insert end of video tagline here.